Certified Financial Planner is an innovative, comprehensive, informative, and cutting-edge podcast that discusses financial topics ranging from personal finance, economics, politics, and personal growth. Simply Financial will cover intriguing and thought-provoking questions so that the listener can simply increase their financial IQ.
Welcome to the Simply Financial podcast. I'm your host, Christopher Calandra, and I am excited today because this is episode 3, season 4. On today's episode, we're going to change things up a little bit. In a moment, I'll bring on Lindy Brock, who has worked very closely with me for going on 6 years now. We do a lot of servicing of clients jointly. She's licensed, studying for her Certified Financial Planner designation, and is literally my right-hand man, if you will, even though Lindy is a woman. And so we put together today just some discussion items about when we're meeting with somebody who is not a client, kind of how this conversation goes, what we're looking at, what we're trying to accomplish, how the flow of the meeting, the initial meeting, is likely to go. So Lindy will kind of take the lead in today's conversation, sort of interview me. She does lots of meetings on her own. We do an awful lot of meetings jointly. And then there's some times where I do the meetings, but then she and I do a debrief afterwards. But she's always involved in the process of working with a potential client. So, Lindy, thanks for taking a few minutes out of your busy day to cover this with me.
Sure, Chris.
So I think we had set it up where you were going to interview me. You had some thoughts. I thought it was a great idea. This episode actually is your idea, all cards on the table. So where do you want to begin?
So I wanted to start out because one of the reasons I wanted to do this is for people that haven't been through this process before, and they may have never even talked with a financial advisor. And if they have, they may only have one aspect of the financial world and not really know the financial planning process. So when they walk in the office for the first meeting, like you've already talked to them on the phone and done kind of a small introduction, but they walk in the office for the first meeting. What's it like when they walk in the door, and what is the atmosphere?
So I'll say in most instances, even before this, Lindy, if I'm speaking with the person, I'll explain a little bit up front, even prior to us meeting, that the purpose of this meeting is to exchange information and see if there's a common basis to take next steps, which would be a second meeting. So when the prospect comes into the office for the first meeting, we want to be friendly, casual, want to create a very comfortable atmosphere because we want to have open communication with them. So anything we can do with our verbal cues, our body language, how we could set up the office, including the dynamic of how we sit together in the conference room, is all meant to create a casual, conversational, informal environment where we could have open communication. And we want to, from the get-go, let them know that this is a no-pressure, easygoing environment. We're just going to chat because we want them to be relaxed and open with us so that we could have a productive conversation and a valuable exchange of information. Does that make sense?
Perfect sense. And you gave the answers that I was wanting to hear. So,
and you've seen this in action, I mean,
yeah,
a ton, right? Do I accurately describe what happens when we sit down with somebody who we maybe never met before, or they may have come to one of the events where they've heard us speak?
Absolutely. And you're correct in saying that the main goal is just to make them comfortable and get them to open up. So you get down, you sit down and you have your, small chat to get them comfortable. When you really kind of get down to business, what is your first question to them?
Well, I would say before the first question, I'll always want to tie in how we came to meet. for the most part, Lindy, when we're sitting with somebody who's not a client, they most often came to us either from a referral from an existing client or secondarily from a center of influence like their attorney or their CPA. And in other instances, it may be a group that we sponsor. We sponsor, especially in Florida, several organizations like Dragon Boat teams, which is a rowing, dance team, bowling team. So sometimes people will come to us and they're part of a group where we have other clients and we have a relationship where we support that organization. So early on, at the beginning, I want to just remind them how we came to be meeting. So if it was a referral from a client, how long have you known so-and-so? We've been working with our client now for 10 or 15 years. I want to build a bond with them and to reinforce that we have some commonality. And it's good for me and it's good for them to just be mindful of the shared relationship that we have, and that early on begins to pull us close together because we're reminded of how we met, and that's where I'll start. And then that will dovetail into, Lindy, some type of an initial question to find out what they were looking to get out of the meeting, like why did they come in? And sometimes I'll take different approaches. Sometimes it'll be a semi-comical, or I think it's comical, well, what made you want to come in and see a financial geek?
Yeah.
And they'll chuckle, and then they'll often say, because I have a problem, or I have an advisor but I haven't heard from them, or I have an account that's not doing well. They'll open up with something that was driving them to take time out of their busy day to come in or to allow us to come to them to sit down and have that conversation. So that's usually the first question, to try and find out early on a little bit of what's motivating them to have this conversation.
Good. So they get that out, and what are some follow-up questions that you have from that? Do you sort of let them ramble and talk and get out their side? Do you respond immediately? What's your reaction to their response?
Sure. It's a difficult question, Lindy, because it's art over science, and there isn't an exact process for this. In the scope of the initial meeting, there is a process. There is information that I do want to get and goals that I do want to achieve to have it be a productive meeting and set the stage for a potential second meeting where we can make a proposal. But the flow of the conversation will be different in each circumstance. So depending on what the answer is to the initial question will help me judge how I want to proceed. And I think, again, this isn't process-driven. This is me having been in the business for 27 years, having done hundreds, if not thousands, of meetings with a variety of people, different ages, ethnicities, economic backgrounds, investment sophistication. But let's talk about some examples. At some point, depending on the question, I may go directly into what we would say is the fact find, because at some point in the meeting, in all likelihood, I'm going to want to find out kind of the nuts and bolts. I'm going to want to find out their date of birth, their income sources, find out about their asset inventory, how much is in the bank, how much do they have in retirement accounts, where are those retirement accounts, are they putting money in, or are they taking money out, are they married, do they have children, are they employed, are they retired, and I'm going to build my fact finder. Now, I'm a little old school at 49 years old. I do this by paper and pen. We have, as you know, Lindy, a formal questionnaire. I know the questionnaire in and out. I know the information I want to get, but I'm not, and you aren't either, even though you don't have as much experience as I do. You have plenty of experience where we're going to get the information that's on the questionnaire, but we don't have to go question 1, question 2. We could jump around, let nature take its course in the conversation. So going back to your question, most often I'll go into some portion, if not all, of the fact find. Again, some more examples. We'll want to find out, do they own a home? Do they have a mortgage, or is it paid off? What's their status of debt? And that's kind of the fact finder part. Then on the softer part of that will be a little bit more of, what are their goals? What are their objectives? What are they trying to accomplish? Do you have enough income to meet your needs in retirement? Do you feel that you're organized? What are some of your goals and priorities? So that's what I'll do. In some instances, though, I'll contradict myself now. In some instances, depending on how they answer the initial question, it may not make sense to go right into the fact find, in which case I'm going to dig in and explore a little bit more of what they told me. So let's use an example, and this happened with a meeting I had recently where the person described that they have a relationship with an advisor and they're not pleased with it. So my judgment in the moment was not to go into the fact find, but to ask some open-ended questions about what was going on in the relationship. How long did it last? Was it ever good, or was it always disappointing? What was it that happened that really caused them to take action and to seek a second opinion? Find out if they're meeting with other people, and how that, are they meeting with some of my competitors? What was their experience? So I'll delve into the topic a little bit more. It might seem inappropriate or counterproductive to jump right into the fact find. So that's, again, a little bit of the art. In all likelihood, 2 pathways: either dig into the primary answer to the initial question, or go into the fact find so I could begin getting more information on who they are, where they are, and get an idea of their financial standing. I know that was long-winded, but did I paint a pretty good picture?
A little bit. I think so.
All right.
So now that you jumped into the fact find, I mean, that's a lot of questions, and it's very personal information that, some people don't feel comfortable sharing. Why is that information even relevant or necessary?
I would usually use the example, it's a little like, a medical doctor. The more that we know about their financial situation, and including their views and attitudes about their financial situation, things like what they feel is working, maybe mistakes they've made in the past, gives me as a professional, as well as my team that's going to help me put together a proposal to help them solve their problems, increase the chances that we could help them achieve their goals. So I need this information so that I could make an informed recommendation when the time is right. It's not probably going to be at the first meeting, but by compiling that information, getting a sense of the nuts and bolts, as well as a little bit of who they are, what their goals are, and what's important to them, will allow me to use my technical skill set, my deep experience in financial services and financial planning, to be able to help them improve upon what they've already been doing.
In the off chance that you have somebody that is resistant and doesn't want to give you information, or is just being really resistant, how do you move forward from that?
It's a good question. I think that if someone is listening to this podcast and they don't know you or I, Lindy, they may think that this happens a lot, but it really doesn't happen a lot. And the reason is that there was a purpose on why they took out their time to come meet with us. And most times there's some warmth in the relationship. In other words, they know us somehow. They're typically not going to look in the yellow pages and find us. We do, with that said, meet with an increasing number of people who do searches online and find us. But that's still a minority of the meetings that we're talking about today, Lindy and I. So most times they're going to be open. And going back to the beginning,